We want you to come to Andaman, sir.
Who are the beneficiaries of this project?
विश्व की मैरीटाइम इंडस्ट्री के साथ जोड़ने के लिए हम पूरा रोड मैप बना चुके हैं।
What happens when development enters one of the most fragile ecological zones in the world? Can strategic ambition justify environmental risk? And should India build a mega city on an island that sank during the 2004 tsunami? Those are the questions at the heart of a growing national debate over the Great Nicobar project. The Government of India calls it a project of enormous strategic and economic importance. The plan includes a deep-sea transshipment port and an international airport, power infrastructure, and a new city spread across nearly 160 square kilometers. But critics are raising serious concerns. Great Nicobar is not empty land. It is a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. It is home to rare wildlife, dense tropical forest, and vulnerable tribal communities, including the Shompen tribe. Environmental experts warn that more than 130 square kilometers of forest land could be diverted for the project. Millions of trees may be lost. There is another concern: geography. Great Nicobar sits on a highly active seismic zone. During the 2004 earthquake and tsunami, parts of the island reportedly sank by several meters. Yet, despite these concerns, the National Green Tribunal has upheld environmental clearance for the project, citing strategic considerations. So is this visionary nation building, or are we risking an ecological catastrophe in the name of development?
Joining me today is geoscientist C.P. Rajendran, one of the strongest critiques of the Great Nicobar project. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today for such an important conversation. And you have been an open critique regarding the Great Nicobar project. And in your article that you have written for the Wire, you explicitly say that the Great Nicobar project is not merely ecologically destructive or culturally erosive for the indigenous population. It is geologically impossible. Can you elaborate on that first?
Yeah, I'm a geoscientist. Been working on various parts of India on the earthquake hazard, and Great Nicobar, the Andaman Island system has been a part of my research area for a long time. So I've been working there for so many years, even before the earthquake, the 2004. And then after the earthquake, also we continued our work, monitoring the earthquake processes and the tsunami hazard and all that. So I can tell you very with a lot of confidence that the project that they are envisaging in the Great Nicobar Island is a folly in terms of its looking at the geological hazard and the related the earthquake hazard and all that. It looks like they have not taken account of all this in a serious way, and that is something which I miss in their in their assessment. So I don't know from where they have gotten their information on the tectonic framework and the earthquake hazard information and the tsunami information and all that. So I'm not very sure about their sources, but they have not asked me to contribute to it. So I can very well say that their whatever they have done in terms of earthquake hazard or tsunami hazard, I would say that it is a great mistake to have a project that is positioned or located in a place that is known for big earthquakes and a lot of other related tectonic issues. So one thing which I have highlighted in the article in the Wire is one, whether that's an ongoing cycle of tectonic uplift and subsidence and all that, which is going on in a big cycle. So that is not a place like you can compare with the Singapore or Hong Kong, which is quite outside these problems, and which is quite stable in terms of tectonism. So I would think that this part of the issue has not been properly taken into account when they were planning this project.
So, in a way, the project which envisages an international airport, plant, and an entire city, the major risk it would face is of earthquakes. Are you saying that if this project is built, if it's going forward, we are also likely to see that there could be earthquake or tsunami in the region, in the city that they are planning?
Yeah, one thing which I wanted to highlight, I mean, even in the article itself, I had highlighted that during the earthquake, even before the earthquake, there are evidence of the land being uplifted, which is rising. Actually, the land was, in terms of geological lexicon, we call it as uplift, which is actually, it means that the land is rising because of the stress accumulation, because of the plate movement and all that, because that is a plate boundary where the Indian plate is sliding under the Eurasian plate. So that is an ongoing process, and that's because of that processes that's which are ongoing processes. These stresses are being piled up, and there is an ongoing effect of uplift and subsidence in terms of his, whatever is happening there. So before an earthquake, what happens is that, the land actually gets uplifted, which goes up in terms of, in millimeters every year. And, if you go on, calculating that, that can be a major proportion of the uplift of the land. So this is a place that's tectonically fragile. So you don't, in a place so unstable, tectonically unstable, you don't plan such major infrastructure. So when 2004 earthquake happened, then Port Blair, there is a port there, and I mean that there also there's a lot of disturbances and land subsidence there, which has actually impacted the port and damaged the port. So this is something which you expect to happen in Great Nicobar too. And Great Nicobar, the problem again I was telling is that it's a tectonism that is being reflected on an ongoing process. Only when you have an earthquake, there is a major uplift of subsidence. In Great Nicobar, there was a subsidence of land went down for about 4 meters. It's a sudden subsidence. So these kind of processes are not taken into account while they are planning such a big project.
While tectonic planes are one aspect of it, the other is the Galathea Bay, where the planned port site is. It contains coral reefs and is one of the world's largest nesting grounds for endangered leatherback turtles. And the EIA suggests that translocating corals to make way for the port, that's the plan as far we understand it. How feasible is this coral relocation? Because if I'm not wrong, it has not happened before. Like, we still don't know what would it mean for the coral reefs as well. And what is going to happen to the turtles and the other species, flora and fauna, with this project taking place?
Yeah, this is one thing which, I mean, I'm not a biologist, but I've been reading their articles and their reactions and all that. And they're very highly critical about all this. I mean, this whole area is a heaven of biodiversity. So, I mean, it is a very rare place where you have all this turtle and all that species, which are very rare if you compare with other parts of the world. So we all know about that. So that is the whole problem here. And translocation is something which now the proponents of the projects are advocating. So again, the biologists are not for it, and many of them have made a lot of critiques about this, as they wrote about it. And what I understand is that the translocation is a highly, doubtful process, where you have not been able to do it very successfully in many parts of the world. So it requires a lot of other, issues that are involved in it. So it's not been a very successful experiment, which is they have also attempted in other parts of the country, where the success rates are not very high. So they don't. Biologists don't advocate for this kind of exercise, the translocation about such a rare kind of coral species there. And that similarly, that applies to the trees too. That's a huge tropical forest that is located in Great Nicobar. And that is something, they are talking about felling about, lakhs of trees, which amounts to about 130 square kilometers out of 180 square kilometers of the entire, uh, uh, the hub they are talking about, which they are developing, which includes the military, I mean, the naval base, and the tourist hub, and other processes that are associated with urbanizations and all that. So, and the port. So this is something, again, a huge problem, because this area where you have a tropical forest which has been there for millions of years, and that's, again, there are people who are dependent on that, the indigenous population, the Shompens and Nicobaris, who are there again for thousands of years, who are migrated elsewhere, and they are just living there, and their livelihood is dependent on the forest. So this translocation, again, the people who are promoting this project, they are saying that the translocation will take place in Haryana. I mean, which is, again,
Yes.
cannot be compared with the tropical forest environment what you find in the Great Nicobar. Haryana is in, it's not cannot be compared with the tropical forest environment. So again, there is a problem that is criticized by the botanists.
So, and the government has also claimed that less than 10 lakh trees will be cut for the project, and it has also said that afforestation will take place in another place, that is Haryana. Like you mentioned, that Haryana might not be a replacement, it's still not going to give the same results that trees in the Nicobar region give us. But do you also believe that the trees are less than 10 lakh trees will be cut for this project, considering that even in 1 square kilometer, there are a lot of trees in that region? So, is the government claim that less trees will be cut, and is the afforestation that will take place enough in the name of the project?
That's, again, the problem is, like you are actually, that is a tropical forest that is, if you look at the monsoon processes, the whole monsoon wind, all that being focused around that area, and you are talking about a forest that contributes to the evapotranspiration, where the vapor is being sent to the atmosphere, and that's being turned into clouds and all that. This is a huge process that is involved in it, and the forest has a huge role. And you are planning to cut all these trees, which impact this whole our rainfall systems. I mean, that is what it is. I mean, we have not understood the intricacies of all that processes, but we know that these are all related: the monsoon, the forest, especially in a tropical area, and all these are interrelated. And you are unnecessarily getting into this system and disturbing this, which will have a huge impact even on the climate system that we are finding every year. Every year you have this monsoon and all that. I mean, which is already it's in a problem because of the climate change and all that, and you are actually contributing to that.
And what's the impact of this going to be on the vulnerable tribes, that's Shompen and Nicobaris? Uh, and what was the even process like to get permission from them, considering that the tribe does not really interact with the mainland world?
Yeah. Yeah, that is something again has become a very controversial issue now, because that is what's being raised in a high court in Calcutta, where the issue is very serious, because the government has actually produced a document which says that the Shombans have agreed to move out of their forest. In fact, the question is, the Shombans don't understand what's being written there in the documents. So when you say that the Shombans have agreed, it is just the village council, which the Gram Sabha, which they talk about, and they say that the document is signed by the Gram Sabha authorities and all that, but there are no Shombans representatives in that village councils. So the question is, how do you? I mean, because the tribal law, the India tribal law is very clear about how this can be done with the participation and the consent of the indigenous population. This is very clear about that tribe, the law. So the law is being violated. That is the issue that is being raised in the because it's just done without the consent of Shambans and Nicobaris. That is what they say. So that is being looked into by the court.
So if the project happens, what is it going to be for the tribes and all the vulnerable tribes over there? What is the future going to look like? Is it going to be like how Jarvas came into the picture after the Andaman Trunk Road project? What's their future going to look like?
It looks like, it's a complete obliteration of the indigenous population, which goes against our what is being written as our law. Is very clear about how we need to interact with them, how we need to keep them away from the general, the population outside and all that. It's all very clear about that, and why we cannot disturb their livelihood, which is highly dependent upon the forest in which where they are living.
Yeah.
So there is a tribal law is very clear about all these things, where these should not be disturbed at all. And when this project comes into effect, what is going to happen is that these people are being transported to some area where they're given some kind of cottages, or wherever, there's some colonies where they're will be asked to live, which will end up in obliteration of their tribe and their culture. As that'll be is more, equivalent to, the word should be genocide kind of a thing, which although that's not be applied here, but almost close to that. I mean, we cannot do that. We are not supposed to do it.
So it's not just ecologically concerning, but also it can erase an entire culture, indigenous culture of the country too. But one of the justifications of the government has been that it is a strategic project. It's for safety from the threat of China. In your assessment, is the Nicobar project will truly enhance national security? Does it counter the China threat?
I think there is again a miscalculation here in terms of the defense and the strategies associated with that, because there is already, as I understand, there is a base which is called INS Boss.
Yeah.
Is there in Campbell Bay, and if you can strengthen that with minimum uh, built environment around it and all that, with minimum interference in the environmental parts of it. So you can still have a base there with your whatever you want to add on to it. So why do you need a commercial hub and an urbanized development which is being, I mean, what you can say is that the military base, the strategically placed military base will be compromised because of the huge population around it. And there'll be a huge, I mean, actually planning that to be a Singapore. That is again, which will impact the security of the base there and all that other things associated with it. So what I would suggest is that if you have a base, already there is a base there, you can actually develop it with minimally with other add-ons. So you can have a base there, but you don't have to necessarily have built an environment and a commercial hub or a tourist hub, which can impact the environment there.
So rather, developing the current one is much more sustainable and would not do as
Exactly.
much damage as the current project would do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also regarding the Malacca Strait, considering now the geopolitics of the world, where Strait of Hormuz, the blockade of Strait of Hormuz has cost all the countries so much, and we do need to think about the geopolitics as well. What can the Malacca Strait, the closeness to Malacca Strait, empower us as the government says? Would this project really help with that?
I think, what you see around, as you mentioned about Hormuz and other places, it is becoming, all these places, as you can see, is getting highly militarized, and there's a lot of other issues that are associated with that. So what we have to do, I mean, actually, the India should take a leadership in this, bringing in all these ASEAN countries and, all the other countries involved here to have a system where this area is not militarized highly, and you need to have a place where you can move your ships and other things very peacefully and with the help of others. And the important thing is to convince the people or the other countries there that environmental justice, because this is a hot spot, and Great Nicobar is a hot spot, in terms of its biodiversity and in other environmental issues. And so we need to be very careful about disturbing this, which will have a huge impact otherwise. So this is something India should take a leadership and make it a common issue and discuss with others about how to make it a less militarized region.
So, what is the impact of this project going to be on the other parts of India, geologically speaking, as well as the overall impact?
If you go ahead with this, the problem is, if you look at Himalaya, I mean, there is also a lot of infrastructural development that is going on there with the scanned, taking into account of the other issues that are related to the environment. And you can see that, once you have all these things there, it impact the landscape, and you see that the landslide and in other related hazards are increasing exponentially there. So these are the problems that you can expect in elsewhere also, like in the Himalaya, where again it's a tectonically fragile area where we need to take into account of all this. So what is important is to see the sensitivity of the region in, when you come up with a huge project like this, even if it is for your national security, you need to be very careful about implementing it, taking into account of all other parameters, especially the environment and ecology, in a time when the climate change is becoming a huge issue.
Also, similar mega projects have been planned in the other worldwide sensitive areas as well, which had also faced blowback. Like Brazil's planners had initially blocked from building a port in the UNESCO designated Atlantic forest, and similar way, UNESCO had also warned Australia against new port developments that could endanger the Great Barrier Reef. So, are we also repeating the same mistakes that history had already warned us about with this project? And considering that National Green Tribunal have already cleared the project in February 2026.
Yeah, this is something which there's a huge mistake here. That is what we have been discussing about, and people have been raising a lot of objections against this. There's nothing to do with your, I mean, this is more to do with your love of the country, and it's landforms and other things which are very important to the sustenance of the human race. So, once you start doing this, this will have a huge impact. That is what people, been warning about. So unless because you cannot say, like, when we say that Chinese are doing things on the other side of the Himalaya, because they are doing a lot of developmental programs there, and why not we also do on the other side of the Himalaya that belongs to us. So the issue is that much of the tectonism and the of the Himalaya and other places are taking place on the Indian side, not on the Chinese side. Chinese is having a place where it's not much of tectonism there, the Himalayan part. So that is what the difference is. So you have to understand that we have a portion of Himalaya that is highly susceptible to big earthquakes and huge tectonic forces that are yeah. So that is something we need to understand, and put these things into our programs, take this thing into account when you plan these programs.
Also, the project is labeled as holistic development and a model of green growth. So, do you see any path where this scale of development on Great Nicobar can truly be made sustainable, or is that very premise fundamentally at odds with the island's ecological and geological limits?
That's what is very clear about our stand. What whoever has been criticizing this program, it is very clear that there are fundamentally there are certain truth that you cannot mask, and that those truths cannot be sort of diluted, and and you present to the court saying that it's all very important for the security. So the question again is, what is our security? I mean, the security is not just the strategic security. The security is also about our environment, our water, our the climate and all that. That's all very important. I say, as you go on, this becomes more important than the external aggressions or whatever. I mean, that is what I think.
So sustainably, it's not possible to have this level of development in this region of our country without destroying our environment, the tribes, and the natural uh, space of the land.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that is what it is. Yeah.
Also, before we end, the last question, that what does it really tell us about our democratic process, considering that how the vulnerable tribes might not have really given their consent to this, and the tribal welfare and also the environmental justice policies of our country with the beginning of such a huge project?
I mean, that's all being violated here. I mean, it's very clear that, when you talk about the democratic processes, you need to take the consent from the indigenous people, and especially the Shompens, who are not being consulted at all. I mean, I mean, this is again a huge violation, and this is what being raised in the court now. And let us see what court comes out with. I mean, what is they're going to decide on this. But it's very clear that the Shompens and other indigenous population have not been consulted, and their consent has not been obtained formally. So that's a very serious issue.
So now the ball is on the court end. We can hope
Yes,
that.
all is in the court. I hope court will make a very good decision as far as the other issues are concerned.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and for the insights. Thank you.
Thank you.